Born to be wild.
Hello and welcome back, everybody, to Born to be Wild. We are doing our United in Stormwind card review show from a wild perspective. I am here today hanging out with Electric Sheep City. Hydra was with us for the bulk of the set review and had to run earlier in the day. So we were finishing up without him, unfortunately, but that is okay. We've got all of his notes and we'll get all of his scores for later on. And y'all are stuck with the two of us. So let's jump into Shaman.
Yeah, so we are starting Shaman out with an investment opportunity. Promises on an MLM. So investment opportunity is a 1-mana spell with overload. Or blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have overload, but it draws an overload card. So it does not have overload itself. Tutor draws an overload card. Tutor draw is powerful, but I think that most of the decks that we're going to be playing this in, the majority of our deck is overload or overload synergies. In that case, is this necessarily important for the tutor draw? In that case, do we want to, just run regular draw, like the 2-mana draw 2 with overload? Like, yeah, that would be even better. So I see a lot of possibilities in this.
Mm-hmm.
Blue in particular is going to make this work in big Shaman, which makes a lot of sense. But the main place that I see that this is kind of going for is that kind of aggro overload Shaman, which we already have things that we'd rather do. And so in that case, it's kind of a little bit more of a standard card for that, but I would love to be proven wrong. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah. So in Big Shaman, it'll draw Ancestral Knowledge, which is the 2-mana draw 2, Overload 2. So, if you're trying to refill or whatever, that's cool. There's also some AoE. There's always potential for like Overload Aggro Shaman, and we've got a couple other cards in this set that support that archetype. I think it's interesting, Shaman historically has kind of lacked draw. There's just not that much draw. We've got Ancestral Knowledge, and then there was the other one that was a draw card, reduce the mana cost. But that's about it. Like, there's not a lot of draw for Shaman, so I don't see it as a bad thing. I mean, you got to put it in the right deck. And so right now in Shaman, we've got several archetypes. There's Murlocs, there's Big Shaman, and then there's a whole slew of like Galakron variants. There's the Reno version, and there's like the Elemental version. And, there's some stuff, the different Galakrons depending on what you want to run. And so, but like draw for Shaman is good. Then it's like, okay, well, what overload cards are you putting in your deck? So I don't think it's bad. In fact, I think it probably finds a home in a handful of the decks, but I'm just not quite sure where. So, I'm hopeful, but I sort of agree with Blue Train. Like, we need to test it out and see, and maybe it finds a home and maybe it gets cut depending. Mm-hmm. But I see the potential.
Yeah. So as for the ratings, I'm thinking that we probably, after testing it out, probably end up cutting it just because the ones that have a density of overload cards, most of the cards are overload, and this is just spend 1 mana to cycle. And in the other ones, it's their other kind of tutor draw that we maybe would rather do. So I'm going to go with the 2 because it's a powerful card. I mean, tutor draw always is. Mm-hmm. But I think at the end of the day, we probably cut it. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I give it a 2 as well. It just depends what you put it in. And so, like Danny's saying, if you've got a specific card that you're looking for, but like a lot of these decks you're either running a lot of overload or like no overload. And so, right. If I use this as a specific tutor, like that's where I see it working in Big Shaman. Like, cool. This is like draw your draw card. But maybe, yeah, okay, it's a build around, like, okay, yeah, draw Doomhammer. There's definitely potential. But I want to play with it and see what it's all about first. So I feel pretty comfortable with the two referencing like fringe play. And hey, if it's better than we think that it's going to be, then I will be happy about that.
Oh yeah. Whenever Shaman is good, typically the meta's in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
Unless it's evolved. That brings us to Canal Slogger. So Canal Slogger is a 4-mana, 6/4 elemental minion with Rush and Lifesteal and Overload of 1. So this is basically 5 mana. You can just get it out a little early. You pay the final mana later. For a 6/4 Rush with Lifesteal. What?
Dude, this is an
How?
interesting card. This is a real interesting card. Like, if you compare this to like Ziliax or something, like, okay, it doesn't have the Divine Shield, but like 4 mana heal for 6 and kill, another minion, and like, I don't like you. Hey, maybe we potentially throw this into Big Shaman. I don't know. Like, the lifesteal is really valuable if there's a bunch of aggro. Like, I don't know. I wish that, frankly, it was like the stats were switched. Like, it was a 4/6 because it feels like it's easy to kill. But then again, if they're having to run stuff into it, then you're healing. If they're having to use removal spells on it, then that's removal that they're not using on your face. So I don't see a lot of downside, and the overload of 1 is not that bad. Like, historic Shaman stuff, this would be like overload 2 at least.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I get the sneaking impression that whenever Shaman was, but before the mini set, whenever Shaman was a little bit, in the dumps in standard, because that's what they designed for obvious reasons. This was one that they were like, okay, if the mini set doesn't cure that, this will. And the mini set cured that, and they still printed this one anyway. So yeah, Elemental Shaman's gonna be really good in standard. I think this might even see a nerf.
oh, dude, Elemental Shaman is almost too good in standard right now, because you just play cards
Yeah.
on curve, and they have really strong battle cries, and like, there's no issue. We had complained early on about, oh, it says you have to play an elemental last turn, but like, in standard, it's so easy to do that, and where it's tricky in wild, like, I had played some elemental Galakron Shaman with Jordan, and we had legend with it. Like, it was good, but there's half the number of elementals because you're running the Galakron support cards, and so they're just harder to trigger. Where in standard, like, it's so easy to trigger, and like, this is a good card.
And standard is a lot more mid-range, just in general right now.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. That fits really well with an elemental style deck in general. So it makes sense that it's a little bit more powerful, especially right now. So Canal Slogger, it's gonna definitely make the cut in most things. I don't know if I quite want to give it a 5, just because I don't think that in Wild in particular it's going to be meta defining, but like, we're gonna play it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be nerfed, but it's gonna probably be nerfed for standard. So I'm gonna go 4.
Yeah.
But it's like a super strong 4 for me. How about you, Nate?
Yeah, I feel like 4 is strong. Like, because it'll be nerfed for standard. Like, I don't see, like, if we look at the existing archetypes that are strong in wild, we're talking like Reno Shutterwalk, we're talking Murlocs, we're talking some Galakron stuff, and like, this doesn't fit in super great. I mean, it's a really solid card, and hey, maybe this creates, like, maybe Elemental is good. Like, Floop is saying that, he's got in top 1K Legend with like a mid-range Elemental build, and like, this definitely fits in something like that.
Oh yeah.
For sure. And I if I'm playing an aggressive deck or something, like, you can't let this live because it heals too much. Mm-hmm. And with the Rush, like, it's an immediate, like, 4 mana heal 6. Like, that's legit really good. So I give it a 4, and I feel pretty strong about that. I struggle a little bit to find its home, but there will be a place. So
Yeah.
yeah, seems good. Seems good.
One of those places may or may not be Spirit Alpha. So Spirit Alpha is a 4 mana 2/5 minion that reads, after you play a card with Overload, summon a 2/3 Spirit Wolf with Taunt. I couldn't find anywhere where the art or whatnot for the Spirit Wolves were, but I'm assuming it's, the exact same as the previous Spirit Wolves. So a 2/3 with Taunt and the Beast tag. I mean, 4 mana 2/5 is a little underwhelming, but the effect is amazing. If you play a lot of Overload cards, then, oh, hey, look, you have a board, and odds are that you just either dealt with your opponent's board or dealt a lot of face damage while building your own board. That's pretty kickin' rad. It may be a little too slow for our format, though.
Yeah, that's what I struggle with. Is like, where does it go? I like it. I see this, like, there's in duels where it says, like, your overload cards don't overload you. Like, sweet, let's play this and play a whole bunch of overload cards and get all these 2/3 taunts and not have to pay the overload cost. But I struggle with it in Wild. That being said, like, okay, if I play Tunnel Trog and it's getting buffed up, and I can keep generating these 2/3 taunts to, like, protect my little dudes over here, hey, maybe that's good. I guess it potentially creates some new archetype in this, like, Overload Shaman. That aggro Shaman with a bunch of Overload cards is a thing. It's tricky and it's fringe, but we see some support, and we've got a couple of upcoming cards, at least one, like that Overdraft card, could fit into all of this in a pretty nutty way. So, it feels a little bit slow. Is this going to live? Do I have to play this and an Overload card with it at the same time to make sure that it survives? Like, yeah, maybe. Probably, this is definitely one of those that has, like, soft taunt, right? Because you if you leave it, you're going to regret leaving it. So, the potential is there, and I just struggle with how fringe it's going to be. But the effect is powerful, no doubt.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, there will probably be a standard version of the Overload Aggro Shaman and a Wild version. And in the conversion from Wild to Standard, some of the cards that Standard can't play because they don't have access to them, they'll slot in Spirit Alpha instead and feel pretty good about it a lot of the time, particularly since it's a more mid-range format. So if we see it played in Wild, like, I don't think it's a bad card. It's a powerful effect. It's just a little expensive. So for Wild, I'm going to give it a 2. How about you, Nate?
Yeah, same. And I just say it because it's fringe. It doesn't look bad. It looks good. The deck itself, like, I feel like there's stronger Shaman archetypes. So
completely agreed. So that brings us to Auction House Gavel. Auction House Gavel is a 2 mana 2/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, reduce the cost of a Battlecry minion in your hand by 1. So giving something a Thorsan tick. Odds are, if you're playing this, you're playing, something like a Shutterwalk Shaman, to where that's actively useful. You're essentially paying for the Gavel itself with that. So it's basically a free 2 mana 2/2, as long as it actually gets the discounts. You don't get to choose which Battlecry it goes on, so it may or may not go on to anything that you really want to weave in, because you're probably running a lot of Battlecries. I don't think that we're probably playing this a whole lot, just because the decks currently that would benefit from this are so tight that why would they then want to cut something to include a weapon that just discounts things that it's already got? So I don't know that we really have a whole lot of a place for it in Wild, but it's not a bad card. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, the sticking point for me is that it reduces the cost of a random Battlecry minion in your hand. And so if I'm playing any sort of Galakron, Shudderwalk, whatever, like there's going to be more than one Battlecry minion in my hand. And if it hits the wrong one, like, okay, by the time I play this, like, what if it hits a 1-drop and now it costs 0? Like, that doesn't really help me out that much. Like, I want it to hit, the 6 mana one, so now it's 5 or whatever, so I can play something the next turn. And so, the Whack-A-Null Hammer that buffs a card, like, that feels better to me if I'm going to run a weapon. And like you said, like, the Battlecry decks are pretty tight. This pays for itself. That's the thing. So I get a net mana reduction of 2, but I pay 2 for the weapon, so it evens out. So why play it if I follow that logic trail, right? So it just seems like, hey, it's cool. And hey, it's the Gavel House. Yeah, that's neat. And Gavel House reducing the cost. That's cute. Like, it's very Stormwind, but I just, like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, I can use a weapon to take out my opponent's minion so that I preserve my minions. Like, I understand that type of thing, but, like, I don't really want to cut something to stick this in for a net, like, 0 mana reduction.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think Auction House Gavel is perfectly playable, but I don't know why you would want to. It doesn't have anti-synergy. In fact, it could very well benefit things. So instead of giving it a 1, for me, it's a 2. What about for you?
Yeah, I was kind of wavering between a 1 and a 2. I'm ending up with a 1 just because, like, Whack-A-Null feels better for now. And, like, I don't know. Like, if it said reduced by 2, okay. Hey, now we're talking. But it's reduced by 1, and because there's no net reduction, it doesn't seem worth it to me. So, yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe there's something in the future that makes it better or something. But, if it had the durability, was a 3 or a 4, maybe. But that seems too generous, right? Maybe a 2 mana 2/3 would make it maybe worthwhile. But, yeah. All right, let's move on.
Cool. That brings us to Charged Call. Charged Call is a 3 mana nature spell that reads, discover a 1-cost minion and summon it. Upgraded for each overload card you played this game. So this could be a 3 mana, discover a 10, 12, whatever, cost minion and summon it.
What does it cap at? Do you know?
I would imagine
probably
that
10.
It caps at 10, but if you go over 10 and eventually get to 20, I think you're probably guaranteed the Mountain Giant, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
So,
I mean, this is an upgrade card, so that's kind of cool. I like when they use older mechanics.
And it doesn't need to be in your hand to happen either, just over the game, which is pretty cool.
That's the redeeming quality of this card. Like, with Hagatha's scheme, right? That's the one that does AoE and it builds when it's in your hand only. Like, that's kind of sad because it's like, well, if I draw this early, do I keep it and so that it can start growing? Where this is like, hey, you draw it late game and it's potentially pretty beefy. But, like, I don't want to discover some random minion. Like, I don't know. It has the potential to get big, and it's cool. Yeah, I have 3 mana, play a 10/10. But, like, why? The random factor, especially in Wild, makes me not want to play this.
So you say, if you draw this late game, blah, blah, blah. I say, why are we in the late game?
Well, that's the thing. And hey, maybe you even tempo this out. If I've played overload cards on 1 and 2 or whatever, like could I play this on turn 3, turn 4 for a decent sized thing? Yeah, maybe, whatever. But like, I don't know. Even then, if I play it early, say I play it turn 4 and I've overloaded on turns 1 and turns 2. So this is 3 mana, discover a 3-cost minion and summon it, right? Like, So a 3 mana 3 cost minion? Like, I just like play my 3 mana minion without this card. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a little scratching my head here. Like, why? I don't really like
But it's
it.
cool.
But the art is so rad. I can't wait to see it in gold. That's how I feel.
Uh-huh.
I score it as a 1.
Yeah. But it's cool is this is a Timmy card. We're going to see a Cholden video with somebody playing this and getting a huge, like getting an Alec here and going face for lethal. And it's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
But most people won't play this in their deck unless they're trying to get on that Cholden video. So for me, it's also a 1. Most people in Wild, the standard may be a different situation.
Yeah. All right, this next card I want to talk about because this is something right here.
This is incredible. So the next card is Granite Forgeborn.
That's
Granite
incredible.
Astonishing. So Granite Forgeborn is a 4 mana 4/5 elemental with a battle cry. Reduce the cost of elementals in your hand and deck by 1.
Dude, when I first saw this, I thought it was a fan-made card. Like, I thought this was
Yeah.
I was like, this is not real. There's no way this is real. Like, no. What? Like, your whole deck and your hand for 4? Like, this is getting nerfed. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Like, that this is impossibly good. I don't understand how this was printed.
Yeah, this will make Elemental Shaman go from, decent, playable, and wild to perhaps even standard levels of good. This is incredible.
Well, and the deck is good in standard right now. Like, it's really, like,
Yeah.
it's solid. And this is insane. Like, the reduce your entire deck, and you can put this in 2 times. I don't have words. I'm shocked. Like, I didn't think this was real when I saw it. I thought this was someone's like Hearthstone fan made card. And then the feedback was going to be like, oh, no, it's too good. You can't do that. Like, if it was reduce the cost of elementals in your hand by 1, it would be good. But your entire deck, like, holy crap, dude.
Yeah, I think that a straight up Elemental Shaman, and not just like an Elemental Galakron Shaman, but straight up Elemental Shaman, will probably be played on the back of Granite Forgeborn.
No doubt. I this is bananas to me. Like, this creates, like, we don't really do a lot of Elemental Shaman in Wild.
No.
Or we haven't in ages, and so yeah, Floop, your baby's gonna get better. This card is nutty. So I don't even know.
By our rating scale, 5 is meta defining, right?
Yeah. I sometimes blur those lines.
So I'm giving Granite Forgeborn a 5.
Oh, this is an easy 5 for me. This card is insane. Like somebody made a typo here, or it slipped in without, like, I kept thinking, like, did they test this, or who, like, is, I don't know. This just seems crazy. I don't understand. Any other class, like, could you the reduction of your entire deck, like, I'm just flabbergasted by this whole thing. So yeah, I gave it an easy 5. It seems pretty like crazy good to me. So
Easiest 5. Let's go.
yeah.
So that brings us to Overdraft. Overdraft is a 1 mana tradable shaman spell that reads, unlock your overloaded mana crystals to deal that much damage. So this could be a 1 mana better than Pyroblast pretty easily, because not only is it your mana crystals that are overloaded for this turn, but also your overloaded crystals for next turn.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Like, and it can go face. Like,
And
what?
it can go face.
The only funky thing with this is like, okay, it's got to go in the right deck. Like you don't just toss it into any shaman deck, right? Like
No.
this ends up in a like an aggressively based aggro shaman with a bunch of overload cards, but like, you're always gonna have. I shouldn't say always, but if you're doing a bunch of overload stuff, like more often than not, you're gonna have 1 mana to spare the next turn. Like if you stack too much, maybe you have 0, but like if you leave yourself with 1 for the next turn, this card is crazy good, and it's tradable. I see 0 downside.
And
It
if you didn't leave yourself 1 mana, you can Lightning Bloom, which overloads you for 2 next turn and makes it even better whenever you overdraft this turn to free all your mana crystals.
dude. I like this, and it potentially revives an archetype as well, where aggro overload type shaman, like it saw a brief resurgence over the past set a little bit. It was very fringe, but like it was playable, and it was pretty fast, and you had to try, like you had to be really proactive to not lose to it, because it was just like face damage, face damage, face damage, and this is like, yeah, do a bunch of face damage and unlock all the overload. Like, wow, okay. It's gonna force us to create new decks around it, but that's not a bad thing. In fact, honestly, I think that's a good thing. Cool, we got new stuff. So this card is rad. I can't wait to see the golden version. They're gonna be like slamming the table. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I may have cracked one of these in gold.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to go back to back 5s, but like I think that this will have a very big resurgence in Overload Shaman, and I think that that'll kind of warp the meta around it. Not necessarily it being like OP, but here's another aggro deck. Here's a really good finisher that also happens to be good, even if it's not the finisher itself. It's just amazing to me. To me, Overdraft, I think is going to be a 5. What about you, Nate?
I give it a 4. Give it a 4. I'm not quite as I'm not sure where it all settles out, but it seems very good to me. Like, it's so versatile. Use it on a minion, use it on face, unlocks all the stuff for 1. Like in the past, we had something that did the same, but it cost 2, and I think
Dealt 2 damage, I
yeah.
think.
Let me find the card real quick. Okay, so we had Eternal Sentinel that was 2 mana, 3/2, Battlecry, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. And then what is the spell? Lava Shock. Lava Shock is a 2 mana, deal 2 damage, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. So this is deal X damage, unlock your overloaded mana crystals for 1. So it's just way better.
Talk about power creep.
Oh, dude, yeah, you unlock them all for 1, plus do that like X damage. Like this is some crazy setup, because the overload spells are all good. So you just like face damage, face damage, face damage, and then the opponent's like, oh, cool. Well, they can't do anything next turn at least. Haha, let me do 10 damage to you and unlock all my mana crystals. Like, wow, okay.
Which then lets me do more lava bursts straight to your face.
Right? Yeah, this is pretty crazy. So, yes. I got a 4, but hey, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. That brings us to Tiny Toys. Tiny Toys is a 6 mana epic spell that reads, summon 4 random 5-cost minions. Make them 2/2s. So obviously, Evolve and Revolve Shaman got another tool. And I think in Standard that might be a bit of an issue. But in Wild, I think that this being 6 mana might make it to where it's not rampant. I don't know though, because even if they don't evolve it, 4/5/5s with death rattles, etc., could be impactful. But then, of course, the evolving them is what the issue actually is. So if it's 4/6/6s, that's just 4/6/6s, and they're not 2/2s. That's a bit more of an issue. So how do they get there, right? Either they preload something like a Bog Spine Knuckles, which is a 5-mana 4/2 weapon. Okay, they had to spend their turn before, not really doing a whole lot, just equipping that. So hopefully we can kill them by then, or prepare to control the forthcoming board. 6 damage or 6 mana is just a lot. And that's not a bad thing. For something like this, we want it to be expensive for that. It's good. It's really good. Don't try and think that I'm saying that it's not good and all that, but it's slower, which I'm glad about. So, what do you think about Tiny Toys?
I don't like it very much, actually. So here's my rationale for it is if you are requiring another card to make it good, then I have to draw into my evolve, revolve, I have to, or my bog spire or whatever. And that's doable, but it's going to feel crappy when I don't draw into that. And if I just play this for 4 random 5 costs, then I have to hope that they've got death rattles or something. And hey, if it just requires the setup, And so if it's done right, it's got potential. There's definitely high roll potential, but there's a lot of low roll potential. And evolve is one of those really fun mechanics where hey, let's roll the dice and see what happens. And that's where this kind of lands for me. I'll play it for fun, but I think it would be miserable to try to ladder with this because you just never know what you're going to get. I heard some people comparing it to Jandis, but I don't know. Okay, so they're 2/2s. Okay, they better have a death rattle or something. Otherwise, it's just okay. I've got 4 2/2s for 6, which is all right.
6 mana 8/8.
Yeah, I guess. And it's spread over 4 bodies. I like the art. I remember when they were doing the card teasers for the art, and it's zoomed up on the Annoyotron, and everyone was thinking oh, there's another Annoyotron. But if you look at the picture, it's got Ragnaros in the background. It's got Cthulhu in the background. It's got Barnes. Oh my gosh. If they would have zoomed up on Barnes and left Barnes as the right, if they would have left Barnes as
lost their minds,
it would have been so funny. And so there's some potential here, and this card reminds me of one of those yeah, okay, cool, we're gonna see it on Daily Hearthstone Moments or Trollden or one of those, and that's cool. There's fun stuff. I like Evolve, it's fun, but I don't know. I really struggle with this one. It feels like it has fringe potential to me, so I scored it as a 2 for fringe because of all the different shaman archetypes, Evolve to me seems like the weakest one. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and whenever Evolve is not the weakest shaman archetype is typically whenever people complain about the meta because it's all high roll. And they're not wrong. So the fact that I was this is a good card, it's because it will only see fringe play, which is why it's a 2 for me as well. I really like the card. I think it's really strong, and I think that I'm glad that it's at 6 mana.
Yeah, maybe. And you know what? If we're wrong on this stuff, happy to be proven wrong. That's always that's always fun. So my crystal
that's part of prediction.
I was gonna say my crystal ball only works half the time, and even then it's a little faulty. So and yeah, who knows, when the next round of cards rotate to wild, will we get some potential unnerfs that could change everything? Yes, potentially. So there's that. Mm-hmm. All right, well, we've got the quest now, or the quest line.
Yeah, so the Shaman quest line. Command the elements. Play 3 cards with Overload. Reward, unlock your mana crystals. That's impactful. Cool. So the next step is Stir the Stones. Play 3 cards with Overload. With the reward, summon a 3/3 elemental with Taunt. Okay. Then the next step is Tame the Flames. The quest line of play 2 more cards with Overload. The reward is Stormcaller Brucon. So Stormcaller Brucon is a 5-mana 7/7 with a battle cry. For the rest of the game, your spells cast twice. So Stormcaller Brucon is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Playing Overload cards seems like a thing that we can pretty easily do. Cool. I'm with everything so far. The first reward, unlocking your mana crystals, cool. The second reward being summon a 3/3 elemental with Taunt is just a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, I honestly would have rather unlocked my mana crystals again.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I will say of all of the quest lines, the art on these is my absolute favorite. It's so rad and it's so colorful and it's so cool.
It is incredible. And the fact that all of the quest line steps are play that many cards. So 3 + 3 + 2 is 8. So 9, including the quest line. That only leaves you with 21 cards left in your deck. That's quite a few to, then have the rest of your spells cast twice at that point.
The only downside to that, and this seems pretty cool. I don't know how viable it is. It seems really cool. The tricky piece is going to be like, okay, cool. I play lightning, whatever, and like overload 1. Cool. It'll play it twice. Like I'll deal 6 damage and overload for 2. Like the overload's going to stack also. And so it's not just like there's this caveat. So it's a double-edged sword. Still some potential. Like if the idea is, hey, this is a finisher and I'm just going to dump my hand and just kill you from hand with all my spell like my face spells. Okay. I don't know if it's going to work. We can try it. It feels like a standard thing to me. Maybe like by the time I've played all that many cards, if you're still alive, like I'm probably going to lose. But, maybe not. It really is going to require us to unlock the overload, though, because if we're playing that many, it's like, hurry up, slow down, hurry up, slow down. And, okay, like, I have the charged call. No, overdraft. Sorry, I've got overdraft. It'll unlock me. But, like, I might have to play some other overlock stuff. Unlock your overload stuff if I want to make this work and not be super slow. So I don't know. It requires like a build around, which is where I struggle with it.
So not only does this require a build around, but the overload and then having to unlock them and then overload again and having to unlock them. This whole quest line is bait. And bait is there because it looks delicious. It looks incredible. I mean, the reward of the rest of the game, your spells cast twice, is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But getting there, But yeah, it's total bait.
Giga bait. I love it. Yeah, it probably is. Because, yeah, I agree with you. You look at it and you're like, ooh, look at that. Reward is so good. And it's going to be so difficult to trigger and so slow. So whatever. Fun factor. I scored it a 1. and that was before we talked about it. And you know, the question is the payoff worth the reward? And I think if I do it right, like, you should just be dead by the time that I've got the reward completed. Blue Train gives it a 0. So there you go. What do you score it?
So not only that, but I have to pay 5 mana to get it right after I finish overloading a ton. Oof. This card is such bait that I'm giving it a 2 because people are going to play it because it's so enticing.
Yeah. No, it is.
So
it is.
It's not because it's that good. It's people are going to play it to try and make it work because it's such bait.
No, I mean, we've had this conversation and I agree with you and I'm still tempted to try it. I mean, like, not even joking. So yeah, I right there with you. All right, we've got one shaman card left. The final legendary.
Yes, and the final legendary is Bolner Hammerbeak. Bolner Hammerbeak is a 2-mana 1/4 that reads, after you play a Battlecry minion, repeat the first Battlecry played this turn. So it only costs 2, so you can easily weave this into turns, particularly with something like Lightning Bloom. And of course, the biggest question that we have, and Blue Train and I were talking about this in between segments, is whether so if you play Bolner, then you play a Battlecry. That Battlecry is the first Battlecry minion that you played this turn. So you played that Battlecry minion, you got the Battlecry, and then after you play a Battlecry minion, repeat the first Battlecry. So does that mean that the very first one that you play has the brain effect? I think so. I think so.
My brain broke a little bit trying to think about that. I think so.
And I think so specifically because it says after. If it said whenever, I don't think that it would. But since it says after, you get the Battlecry effect, and then Bolner's effect goes into effect, just for a ton of the word effect, because it says after. So I believe so. And that makes Bolner Hammerbeak
bananas.
Complete bananas.
So this will trigger multiple times in one turn, right? So like you said, I dropped this, and okay, like, say I've got plenty of mana, right? And I play this for 2, and then I play for 4 more. I play Granite Forgeborn that reduces everything, and then I play some other random Battlecry, the 1-mana frog that gives me a shaman spell, and then it does the Granite Forgeborn Battlecry again, and like, so if I keep playing Battlecry cards, it's gonna repeat the first Battlecry, right? And so there's some potential to break some things with this if it works like that, which it sounds like. It says repeat the first Battlecry played this turn, and it says after you play a Battlecry minion. Like, I've seen this mechanic work in Battlegrounds with the Blue Dragon, whatever it's called, where like you play a Battlecry minion and it does this thing. And like, so I think the mechanic works. Like, it'll just do the same thing over and over and over. And this could be pretty nutty, actually. Now, it's got to go in a Battlecry deck. So, like, okay, it goes in Elementals, it goes in Galakron, it goes in Shudderwalk. But, like, those are pretty good decks. Yeah. And so, why not? Like, this card is and like, static, or it only costs 2. I'm surprised that they, like, this doesn't cost like 8 or something, because this is going to get abused, I could see pretty easily. Yeah. So the score on this is like, I gave it a 4, but it might be more than that. It might be a 5.
Yeah, I went with a 5 just because it's basically brand, but more brand. Right?
Yeah.
It's brand, not even just like squared, but like way more than that. Because if I play Bolner, then I play Granite Forgeborn, everything gets discounted by 2. And then I play another cheap elemental that has a battle cry, everything gets discounted again. And then I have a lot of discounted elementals with battle cries in my hand that every time I play, discount all the elementals in my hand and my deck. That's insane.
Yeah, you can't see it, but I'm crying right now. I don't know if they're happy tears or sad tears, but like, wow. Wow.
So I don't think that's just a standard thing either. Like I think
No.
Elemental Shaman on the back of course, Granite Forgeborn, but Bolner Hammerbeak is gonna do it too.
I'll give it a 5 as well, because I see, like, if it works like that, I could see this getting tweaked. Like, whether it's increase the mana cost or decrease the health or something. So yeah, this is a thing for sure. Yeah, infinite chain. There's definitely some pretty crazy potential here. So yep. All right, everybody, that's it for Shaman for us. So thank you all for watching, thank you for listening, and we will be back momentarily with Warlock.